Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Ann McCarthy. I'm an architecture wrangler working for Automatic. I want to briefly just make sure you can connect the faces. So this is, as you can see from up here, Christian Taylor, Mark Szymanski, Jamie Marsland, and Michael Cunningham. Give them a follow, like, subscribe. Thank you all so much for being here. I just want to take a moment to thank the event staff, all the volunteers, everyone who made this possible, and thank all of you for coming here. It always means a lot when people take time out of their days to care about something that I care about. So to dive in, the reason this topic came up is because I've been on numerous release squads for WordPress, working with many people to create content around the release and to talk about what's actually coming in the releases. And I noticed something really strange. Even though tons of people came together to create really great content, it might get tens of thousands of views, videos or posts that we would do. But a single influencer could get that in a single day with a single video. Let that sink in. That's the reality of the media landscape that we're in today. And for me, the reason I care so much about this is because it gets straight to the heart of who is telling the story of WordPress. What story are we telling? Who's compelled by that story? What does it mean for the next generation? What does it mean for open source? Those are things that we're going to talk about today. And before we dive in and get into a discussion with our panel and have some time for Q&A, so think about some questions, we want to do a little interactive bit. So if someone, if people could raise their hand if you have thought about creating content. Doesn't mean you've published or recorded, but you just have thought about creating it. Wow, that's cool. Okay, now keep your hand up if you've recorded something, but you didn't necessarily ship it. Okay, cool. Keep your hand up if you've recorded something and shared it, posted on social media, wherever. Awesome. Now keep your hand up if you consider yourself a content creator. Cool. Sweet. That is very cool. Thank you so much. So let's get into our first question. I would love to hear about how you all get into WordPress and what approach you all take on your channels.
Am I starting? Okay.
Go for it.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll have you start.
Yeah, my story with WordPress is interesting. I didn't aspire to be a WordPress content creator. I'm just passionate about content creation. My dad's a software developer, so I took an interest in web design, started tinkering with Wix first, but then I found WordPress and discovered, wow, there's a lot you can do for free with plugins, highly customizable. And over the years, I slowly pivoted to cover more of WordPress because I've always just made content around my interests.
Yeah, so my journey is a little bit different than Christian's. I, in 2018, started an agency. Well, it started as freelance, as a lot of us did, and had people that I was building websites for. I was interested in building WordPress, just building websites in general. And I was sitting next to people at my day job at the time. They were building a whole stack in ASP.NET. And I was like, I'm going to try this. And then I tried it for 5 minutes. I'm like, this is way too much. So they said, why don't you go try WordPress? And I was like, all right, that seems more my speed. I found tools like Elementor. That's what I was building with for a very long time. Eventually tried out, got really into dynamic data and, loops and architecture and everything. Was building some pretty complex things. Still have the agency, but about 3 years ago is probably when I started potentially, popping up on your guys' timelines and seeing my funny GIFs that I post all the time on X and YouTube and everything. That's when I was like, I have some things that I can say now because I know enough. And since then, I've just made a ton of connections, and that's really where I started. I feel like I joined the actual WordPress community. Because I feel like you could be building with WordPress, but not necessarily in the community. So that's when I made my jump, and it's been fantastic since then.
Hello, everyone. So my background is in publishing. So before, I had a company called Poodle Press for 15 years, and before that, I ran a publishing company. And before that, I ran a marketing services business. So my whole history has been in publishing. My business started about 15 years ago. I had an idea, a sense that there was a market for WordPress training at the time. There were training courses out there, and they were charging about £500 per day per person for a WordPress beginner's training course. And I thought that's probably quite expensive. So I literally took out a Google ad for and I advertised my course for £95, and I had an order within the first about an hour and a half. So that's told me that there was probably a market, an emerging market, DIY market that wasn't there before. And over the past sort of 10 to 15 years, I've trained personally about 5,000 people. So I'd be going around the UK, hiring out pub rooms and meeting rooms in London, Cardiff, Scotland, 2 courses a week with people in a room. So that gave me an incredible insight into how people actually use WordPress, because I'd see it every single day. And as part of that journey of growing that business, I grew a plugin business off the back of that as well, because I understood how people were using WordPress and the problems they were having with WordPress. And then about 3.5, 4 years ago, my wife said, you should do some YouTube videos. And I said, no, that's silly. And I did actually start to do some YouTube videos. And I fell in love with the process. And then I grew that. And they went pretty well, and people seemed to like them. And I grew that. I've currently about 180,000 subscribers. And it completely changed my life in terms of that process of growing a YouTube channel. I used to come to events like this when I had a plugin business, and I'd walk around and absolutely nobody would know me. And after starting YouTube, I first realized something weird was happening in WordCamp in Athens, WordCamp Europe, a few years ago. And literally I walked in the door and people were asking me for selfies like they knew me. It was so strange. So it kind of taught me the power of video over anything that I'd done before. Sorry, that was a bit long, Michael. Yeah.
Does that mean that you have to like credit your wife now? Does she get all the revenue from your channel?
She gets all the revenue anyway, and she gets all the credit anyway. So nothing's changed.
Hi, I'm Michael. I am also a video content creator. How did I get into WordPress? It's weird that it's a combination of all of your journeys, because I did not intend to become a WordPress YouTuber. I was heavy into video content creation. I had like a vlog on my channel, and that's how I started. And then I started a video agency, and I was like, okay, I need to have like an online presence. So where can I do that? And a friend told me, well, there's this thing called WordPress. You can build a website on it. I was like, great. And he's like, but you need to learn HTML and CSS. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's what I started doing. I started learning it. And I did not quite like it that much. So I was glad when Elementor came around. And I learned from another YouTuber at the time. His name was Ferdy Korpashuk. Maybe you might have heard of him. And he was doing a lot of content around WordPress. I didn't necessarily create content immediately about WordPress. I still stuck with like doing my videography business until the pandemic hit. And I was creating like websites on the side as a side hustle for different people who just needed to build a website for the online presence. And eventually I found like my passion in that, particularly building online e-learning websites. And so that kind of hit off during that time, during the pandemic. And eventually I was reached out to by some folks at LearnDash. It's a LMS plugin company. And I did videos for them for the entire year on their channel. And eventually after that, like a hosting company reached out to me, did some content for them. And then now I'm currently working with the folks at WP Rocket. And yeah, that's been my journey so far. And I was privileged to speak last year. That was my first introduction into the community, I feel like. But other than that, I've kind of been in the ecosystem for a little bit.
I love it. Part of why each of these people are up here is because of how different the backgrounds are. I think there's something really unique in each story. Can we do a rapid fire? Who's a YouTuber who inspired you in your journey?
Great question.
Didn't prepare them for this one.
Yeah, I mean, mine is none of the people in my niche, but Marquez Brownlee, probably the biggest one. Linus Tech Tips, because I started doing hardware reviews and then pivoted to software.
Yeah, there's probably a ton of WordPress ones, but I want to go outside of it. I was like really big into the vlogging and fitness space, like pre all of this. So I would say, I don't know if you guys are going to know any of these names, but like Max Tuning and Christian Guzman. Again, they're not tech focused by any means, but they were the first people that told me, like, if you have something to say, and people will be interested in that, and they just kind of like vlog their life, but they also have their own businesses and things like that. And just that it was really my first taste of that parasocial kind of connection, where like you can put things out in the world, and then people will connect with that, and that's just kind of momentum from there. So yeah.
Mine's a English photographer called James Popsis. If anyone's into photography, go and check out his channel. He's got a very English style, very laid back, and there's loads of space in the videos. And they're just, you don't necessarily have to be a photographer to enjoy them. He just creates a lovely environment, and he's got this quite dry sense of humor. And I think it's quite interesting because it kind of breaks the medium of a traditional It's one of the things I love about YouTube, that you can create these formats that are completely unique. Wouldn't work on television at all, but it works incredibly well on YouTube. So check out James Popsis.
Yeah, I was more in like the vlogging space at the time when I joined YouTube. My first video was posted 2008. But I would also say Marcus Brownlee. In fact, what's funny is he and I posted a month between each other. His first video and my first video. So I would probably say Ferdy Korpashuk, who I mentioned earlier, specifically for WordPress-related videos, as well as Shay Carl. He's like a vlogger. Not sure if he's putting out content right now, but yeah, he was very influential for me, for sure.
Very cool. Thank you all for sharing those. We talked a lot about authenticity leading up to what we want to talk about on this panel. And I think this ties in really well with the next question around what content succeeds, what strategies do you rely on? I would love to have you all just talk about that and talk about the importance of authenticity today.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, authenticity is so important to the point that I'm in many affiliate programs, and when I see the most conversions, it's usually a video that's not sponsored. And it's typically when I've tested something for the very first time. Not that I'm ever not authentic, but just that fresh perspective. Like the audience can pick up on that. They're like, wow, this guy really tested this for the first time, is sharing his honest thoughts, and that performs the best from a conversion standpoint. So a lot of these brands that want to sponsor, they want you to word things a certain way, and then they're kind of surprised when it flops. And I mean, authenticity is everything, especially with content creation.
Yeah, it's funny. Christian and I talk about this extensively offline all the time, because we're constantly trying to navigate this, and he's mentored me so much because he's had a lot more experience with a lot of this than I have. And yeah, I'm just like a very authentic, like vulnerable, straight shooter guy, and I've like tried to develop that even more over time. And when I'm up here, or if I'm on a video or just talking to somebody, I try to be the same person, and I think that's really important, because if you don't do that and you have like a full persona, like let me deviate slightly real quick. There's this concept that I noticed very early when I started YouTube, specifically in WordPress. I noticed a trend of people going from brand names to personal brands on their YouTube channel, like at least 2 or 3, and they went from like brand name, like XYZ brand, whatever, or like something to Jamie Marsland, Mark Szymanski, whatever, right? And I noticed that because people connect with other people. It's harder for them to connect with brands. They still can, but it's harder to connect with them. And I think that was such a identifier for me that I am going to put my name on this channel. I need to be absolutely unapologetically me. And like what Christian was saying, when a brand comes to you and says they want to tweak some things, you can be, you can work with them a little bit on certain things like that. But ultimately, you are putting this content out there and putting this value out there for your audience. And if you lose that, or if you taint your personal brand, it is very difficult to fix that. So I'm just so cognizant of that at all times. And that's just, that's why authenticity above all, for sure.
I agree with all that. I'm going to add to that a little bit. I think one of the fascinating things about YouTube for me is, and I've seen brands, and my advice, if any of you are brands sitting out there and thinking about creating content, is it's a completely different format to TV. And I see a lot of brands approach it as if it's TV. And people are in a completely different space watching YouTube than they are watching TV. Gary Vaynerchuk had a great saying for this. He said, content is king, but context is God. And so the content you produce on YouTube is an entirely different experience. And it's about, when it really works, it is when it's authentic. And authentic can definitely mean different things, but it's like, imagine you're having that personal connection with the person you're speaking to. You're breaking down that barrier. So typically, I've seen brands that have shiny advertorial content. You'll see it generally doesn't get any natural engagement, because when I'm on YouTube, I don't want to see an ad. And the other thing is, when you're on YouTube, you're not just competing against other WordPress brands. You're competing against James Popsis, who's a photographer. And you're competing against Rick Shields, who's a golf channel that we both love, and Wild Camping, and all sorts of crazy stuff. So, and Mr. Beast, yeah. But I think you have to really, really work hard for authenticity as well. It's not just it's just not a thing that you can. It sounds strange, doesn't it? But it's not just a thing you can turn on or off. But when you get it right, the power of video, in my experience of running a plugin business and a training business, is like 10x what you get from written content. It's extraordinary how the content will travel. Like my daughters feature on my YouTube channel, and my cats feature on my YouTube channel. And people kind of know me and know my life because of some of the stuff I share on my channel. I'm going to stop there. Right, Michael.
Yeah. I mean, I'd agree with everything that they shared. My thing about authenticity, I mean, it's a word that is kind of thrown out there. It's often misconstrued in that people could see it as you have to, be the first person to do something. Like that's when it's authentic, but not necessarily. I think it has to be just inherently you. It just has to speak you. It has to exude your personality, your tone. And I think the best way to do that is to just post anything that you're passionate about, anything that gets you fired up. I think your voice has a meaning. It has purpose. You have something to share, and you share that. We all have opinions. We all have, different perspectives. And so just sharing content that is going to be native to how you think about the world and whether any topic, WordPress, whatever, inherently it's going to be authentic. And so I think it's important that we understand that we don't have to worry about, if it's similar to someone else. Once it's coming from your voice, most times it's authentic, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's so interesting just to offer a reflection. It's something I love about the WordPress community is that contributors often write on their own blogs and share a lot of their own thoughts about the current release process. And something I was really inspired by. And what you all are describing of each having authenticity, having your own channels, having your name, having your own perspective on this stuff really mirrors a lot of the current, of course, blogging culture that WordPress has that makes me really excited about YouTube and part of telling that story.
Can I say one more thing?
You can say one more thing.
Yeah. One of the most beautiful things about YouTube, in my experience, is it gives you full creative space to be yourself, and you're rewarded for that. It's not like you're producing, I'm going to use the word spammy SEO content, which I've done in the past. You can actually be authentic and be rewarded for it. So my advice, if anyone's out there thinking about creating a YouTube channel, it's embrace the fact that you can put your personality on the channel, lean into that as much as possible, because it's your one place where you can actually be rewarded for being very authentic. So.
I expect you all to have YouTube channels at the end of this. I would love to pivot a bit and talk about what role either WordPress YouTubers play today, both in open source and WordPress, or variation. What role do you want to play? And I would like to reverse the order to make sure we share time. So would you like to go? You can think about it too.
What role do I think I play personally?
Yeah, like content creators, WordPress YouTubers. What do you play in the ecosystem? And if it's something where it's like, I don't really know right now, it's like, what role do you want to play? What role do you think you can play in telling the story of WordPress?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something I get passionate about because I did start in video and then WordPress came after. And so I've seen what's possible when you put content out there. I've seen how you just put content out there and you can insanely elevate, whether it's your brand or if you're running an agency or a business, whatever. And so I do think that for WordPress in particular, for us to broaden the horizons of our visibility as a community, as an ecosystem, I think getting from 43% to 50% to 60% of market share, I think this is where content can play a major part. Social media can play a major part in just, the possibilities are endless. You're speaking about 5 billion people are on the internet right now, and there's a large portion of that is online looking at video content in particular. And so it's just an opportunity that I think we need to capitalize on. And so creators are like the bridge or the driving force for that, where we're taking what we know, the technical knowledge or what have you, about the platform, and we can share it with the world. And so more people are more informed and aware of what's going on in the ecosystem, what's going on in WordPress, hearing about WordCamps, and then being able to actually come and experience, what it's all about. So I think, it's what I think, we need right now in WordPress, to be honest. I think we need more creators, more people who are investing in creating video content.
Great answer. I'm going to add to that a little bit. One of the most common comments I get here at events like this, and it's largely filled by developers, I guess, is they come up to me and they say, I really want to do YouTube, but I'm really scared to do it. I don't think I can do it. And they have amazing plugin businesses, and their number one issue is generally distribution. And I think I'm very passionate about the YouTube process. So I'd really love to fill that space to help people get their content online and guide them on how to create content that gets engagement and gets more distribution for their stuff. So I'm agreeing with everything you said, but I think that's another role that I'd love to start to help more with as well.
Yeah, it really depends on how you frame it too, because my background initially, the reason that I started creating YouTube videos was because I was learning about WordPress, which is interesting, right? Because there's a whole thing to this, right? There's a whole .com, .org, like every aspect to it. And every time you come to a new WordCamp, every time you talk to an automatician or talk to even people at the WordCamp, at WordCamp, organizers, etc., there's a whole thing that is behind just the software. And if you're interested in that, there is some level of a market to create that content. Furthermore, like in that realm, that was the other thing that I was doing. I was learning in public to a degree early on about how all that worked, but I was also trying to educate other DIYers or agency owners more so about what I was doing. So I think as YouTubers, again, whatever lane you pick within the niche of WordPress, so to speak, that is one of them that is extremely popular. And I feel like all of us have created that content to some degree. Just educating others like ourselves with content that we wish we maybe would have had, at one point, or I think that's a really big one. And I do want to add with that once, if you do stray away from the adding value like that, it can get difficult. So that's why I always try, especially now, to put that in the back of my mind of I am creating this content for my audience. I need it to be valuable for them. And if it ever becomes not valuable, then I'm doing something wrong and I need to recalibrate. And it goes back to everything else we've talked about authenticity and just all the other stuff.
I think a key role WordPress creators can play is, and I know we've all discussed the feedback loop concept. So I think creators are in a unique position to sort of be this liaison between the ecosystem and the end user. I work with a lot of beginners on my channel. I hear things about the general design of WordPress. Sometimes it's a specific product. And I don't know, WordPress is very unique because of the ecosystem. So oftentimes these users may not feel like they have a place to voice that feedback. I mean, who do you contact? Do you contact the host if you don't like something about WordPress? But that's not really the host's responsibility because it's not a closed source thing like Wix or Squarespace. So I think just compiling that feedback from our audience, being able to present it to whoever the appropriate person is, whether it's the core team or a specific host or plugin, I think there's an opportunity there for sure.
I would love to see that. All of what you said is, I want to see more of it. So I want to touch before we move on around the next generation and just thoughts on there around bringing in new folks. And I'm going to say something that might be obvious, but some of us are younger here. And I think it's one of those things where it's we've talked about this with the official WordPress channel. How do we bring in new people? How do we have different creators? How do we bring in the next generation? And I've had talks this week talking to contributors, talking about how we need to refresh people coming in and helping people. And to me, you all are that bridge. I can't remember which one of you talked about being a bridge, but that to me is, I don't know if you all have any thoughts around that, but that to me is something that's really exciting about this is, Jamie, I think you've done an amazing job bringing your daughter into your channel, and it's kind of what does that look like in terms of the wider WordPress ecosystem and getting people to come to WordCamp so it's not always similar faces. I would love to come to WordCamp and not recognize anyone and have it be completely fresh. What would that look like? What would that take? So I don't know if you all have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I could share. I met a 23-year-old who attended WordCamp this year who had no clue about WordPress. Her boss brought her because she's the graphic designer and, he wants to kind of introduce her to WordPress a little bit more so she has a bit of context as to what this is all about, what she's designing for. And I think that's a good start, just encouraging them to visit, putting out more invitations and just informing them about what open source is. You know, that's probably not something that is quite well known among the younger generation. And I'm talking about like Gen Z here, really. I mean, I'm a millennial, and I just made the mark. And I would definitely say that, you know, people in that bracket, maybe they don't care too much about it. I don't know necessarily, but I think if we buy them into the theoretical understanding of what open source is and why is it so important and why they should care, then I think, you know, we can expect, you know, more people to invest in the community. The good thing is that we do have a welcoming community to invite people in. So when they do come in, it's like they stick around because it's awesome, you know what I mean? So I think, like we mentioned, content, putting things out there, I think this is what marketing is about, right? It doesn't matter what you say, is just as long as you're getting it out there, you know, and people are hearing about it often enough. Like Christian mentioned a few other brands. They invest in influencers. They invest in people. They do ads, of course. So I think that is a start. It's a good approach to tackle that.
Cool. Got some stats for you. I ran the stats on the .org YouTube channel this morning and the .com YouTube channel this morning, and also on my channel this morning. Largest demographic is 24 to 35, which is quite interesting. So it's maybe not as gloomy as we think. I ran a training course here on, I can't even remember because of my jet lag, Tuesday maybe, was it? And about 50% of the people that came on that training course were either beginners or had never used WordPress before. I also ran a training course in Barcelona a few months ago, a really cool creative conference called OFF, and it was full of young creative designers from agencies. And we filled the room with 30 people. It sold out like 3 days before the course with 25 people on a waiting list. And they didn't know what WordPress could do. And they were passionate about open source and freedom. It was a real eye-opener for me. So one of the things I would love to see at WordCamp Asia is like a training day where we actually just reach out to the universities like WP Campus Connect and get those guys involved. And we just have a day of training with free training, and that could be WordPress beginner training. It could be, you know, build your first block for computer science people. So even though we're slightly down on ourselves in terms of the aging WordPress, apart from you guys, the aging WordPress community, the stats show us that there is a demographic that really wants to love WordPress. We just need to kind of feels like we just need to open the doors, which we haven't historically done through our content and maybe through some of our other events as well. So there are things we can do. So I'm feeling pretty hopeful about it at the moment.
Yeah, I love those stats. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's that would be sick to see like a training day for sure. Yeah. I'd love to see that. I think there's obviously a ton of things. I think there's already some initiatives, and I do think it's trending in the right direction, maybe just not as fast as we all want because, you know, instant gratification. But there's an initiative to meet the new generation where they're at. And when I say that, you could simply just mean like content-wise, right? Whether that's on YouTube, which I think we're all kind of doing, but also even in like short form. Like the way that the social media and just attention is changing nowadays it's so strange. You hear the whole adage like, oh, people don't have attention spans and all that, and they're just scrolling through short form video. But I know that is an initiative that is taking place within the WordPress ecosystem and everything. So that's awesome to see. I do think continuing that would be fantastic. Definitely get some more traction there. And I think, like differently, I haven't thought about this. I know, again, like Christian and I, Michael and everyone, like we're thinking about these things kind of high level a lot of times, but almost like maybe, I don't have an answer for this, but maybe taking a step back sometimes and thinking about what a 18 to 25-year-old actually wants, like what they actually care about at that age from a online perspective, like from building a website. Like, I just think that obviously they're probably not thinking, I want a blog. That's probably not the main thing they're thinking about, which is fine. But I think there's probably other things that obviously WordPress can do that could enable them to do whatever they want to do instead of making, just having an Instagram or just having a YouTube channel and trying to make that happen. They can actually own, again, we go back to the open source thing, which is a no-brainer. The idea of owning their data and having a place for all that. We just need to come up with better stories, like better examples to illustrate that to them, because the facts just in and of themselves, like sometimes it's not easy to fully grasp until you're really in there and you understand the benefits. So we'll workshop that a little bit, but
Yeah,
that's
let's
I think
do
what we
it.
could
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, I mean, these guys pretty much covered it. I agree. We've got to sell the mission and vision of open source. There's this common debate, does WordPress have a product problem? Do we need to modernize? Sure, I think all those things are great and we should work on them. But the younger generations, they don't really understand why open source is so powerful. Maybe they know what open source is and think, well, I'm not interested in contributing code. That's fine. We need them to understand the concept of owning your platform, owning your data. I mean, that's what's kept me in WordPress. I started tinkering with it, I think when I was around 14, and it was purely just a cost thing. It's free, there's so many free plugins. I could do way more than Wix could. But as I got older, I got shiny object syndrome and started looking at things like Webflow and Squarespace, and I'm like, oh, those are really easy, and they are. They're easier. WordPress is a big time investment, but what kept me there was understanding this is mine. This is my platform, my data. I can take it wherever I want. If a host shuts me down, I just go to a different host. Or if all else fails, I put a server in my attic. And I think we need to help more people understand that story.
Love it, server in the attic. We need a t-shirt of that. We're going to keep this last question a little bit shorter, just being mindful of time. I want you to talk to product owners in the room or people watching later. And what lessons, what things do you wish they understood? Because there's the WordPress project, there's the open source vibe, and then there's also all the products around it. And how do we help make sure that messaging also gets out and the ROI around that? Can you all speak to that? Throwing it to you, Michael. Or anyone, yeah.
I think the one main thing, again, Christian and I talk about this all the time because we're constantly in this space, and I'm sure you guys, I know you and Michael, like you all have these conversations like internally and with colleagues. Is like, if you're thinking about product owners, which I know probably a lot of you guys in the room are, and at the event here, you have to understand, and maybe I'm not speaking to you, maybe you do understand this, but from what we found is that you have to understand that this is a newer concept, but it's not like, I don't want to say it's not rocket science. Like there is a kind of a formula to doing well on YouTube, to dealing with influencers or to dealing with, product deals. Like, when Christian and I or whatever, I keep referencing because he's my sounding board for so much stuff. But when we're talking to product owners or, product companies, we're not making this stuff up. Like we learned this from other industries. I feel like in WordPress, it's not new by any means, but it's kind of niche. There's not a ton of people that are making product videos because there's so many good technical individuals that are making really good products. Like Jamie said earlier, they need that help on the marketing side. And again, just working with creators and understanding that this is not like, there is a formula to it. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. Like there's a way to navigate that. And if you trust in the creator and you work with them and you explain like what you're trying to achieve, most of the time you can get like a solid ROI out of that. And then if you work long enough, like, whether it's brand awareness or conversions, there's a lot of, be willing to learn and kind of work together on that is kind of the high level of what I'd say.
Let's have one more person answer, just because I want to make sure there's.
Can I go? I agree with all that. I'm just going to say, if you are a product owner out there thinking about creating content, do it. That's the first thing to say. I've also open sourced my own blueprint of how I've grown my own YouTube channel, which is on my website. So if you do want to see my exact process, I've kind of laid that out so you can see that. The thing I would say in addition to that was we are living in, and you probably sense this, a unique time of disruption that we are all about to go through, and our customers are about to go through. The AI is going to change everything. So every piece of content I'm creating now, I have that context in my head. And I kind of ask myself, if I could have created this piece of content 5 years ago, it's probably not the right piece of content. So my advice is go for it, but commitment to a cadence of at least one video a week. If you are a product owner out there, you've got to commit to that cadence, and you're going to hate it. And you're going to look at those videos and hate them for a year, but then there will come a point when you learn the craft and you get better at it, and then you look at your videos, and I've got to this point now, and you don't see yourself. You can kind of, you look at this person, and you can objectively say what's wrong with that video. But for me, the number one thing is commitment. You've got to commit to at least one video every single week without fail, but you'll go through some dips where you really don't want to do it. But my advice is create content now. If I was advising any brands at the moment, it would be build brand as quickly as possible. Everything we're seeing with search and how search is being disruptive. Build brand, build brand, build brand, and there's no better way to build brand through video content. So there we go.
You can
Can
say
I
one
say
thing,
something
yeah.
real quick? Yeah, I would say that I've yet to see a brand that has invested in video content and not had some sort of impact. You know, so I'm agreeing with Jamie here that just do it and commit to it, and I promise you, you will see some sort of ROI from it.
Cool. I want to make sure, in case there's anyone in the audience who wants to ask questions, that we have time for that. If not, as you can tell, we can talk for a long time. All right, I don't see anyone getting up. So if someone wants to get up, they can go for it, but we're going to keep going. I would like to hear, we were talking about this earlier, WordPress Creator Studio, talking about doing videos on WordPress.org, YouTube's channel. We've had conversations this week about stuff. Where's the creative juices flowing right now in terms of trying new formats or things you want to see at WordCamps to be more supportive? Because I'm a big believer in creating spaces that people want to come into. And if you can be intentional in that, people will come. It's not enough to say, like, we hope creators come to these things. So I'm curious what other ideas might be coming to mind to bring in more people into this space. So next time we have, 100 people on this stage and we're all fighting for a mic.
All right. I don't know. I shared this crazy idea side stage. I really think it's a terrible idea, but I don't know why I keep thinking about it. Like a 24/7 live stream through WordCamp. So we'd have to have the jet lagged people do the night shift, but I don't know. I just think that'd be kind of fun.
I love the Creator Studio. We talked about some of that. I don't know if any of you guys got a chance to check it out or film in there, but that needs to be a staple because that was awesome. I think there's talks to expand it, make it even cooler. Christian and I and Michael, we filmed a podcast, kind of like a recap in there. There's a lot of folks that can't make every single one of these events, and I feel like just giving them more of a kind of again a recap or just kind of showing them kind of what's going on and keeping them up to speed, so to speak, on that, I think could be really cool. So yeah, that's my main one.
I'd love to see some formats that are video first formats. Yeah, I think we're still in old school event stage phase. So you come and sit down and you listen to a talk, and in a lot of those cases, you can have exactly the same experience if you're sitting at home. Whereas I think we need to rethink some of the formats of these where they're actually almost video first, so the event is being broadcast. Because if you look at some of the views we're getting through the live streams, they're not, in my view, they're not where they could be. So one idea. I don't know if anyone's been here to any speed builds that I've run or seen the WordPress speed builds that I've run. I mean, I would love to see like a big competition where everyone can join in, and there's a massive prize of $50,000 at the end of it, and we have the final on the keynote and the final keynote, and it's rah rah rah, and you have heats building up to it throughout the year. So I just think we need to add. There's an opportunity to add far more showbiz into these events, so they're much more exciting. There we go.
Yeah, I see someone standing there. I'm going to be quick. But I do think, like I mentioned it before we stepped on, but something like, so we had a conversation and we spoke about, for creators, it might seem a bit difficult to contribute on Contributor Day. There's the marketing team. However, sometimes you're not really necessarily sure how you can contribute in that way. And so I just thought about maybe we just put the camera in the hands of a few creators and just have them, vlog their day and share about what's going on and do a recap video, or maybe even brands just, hey, talk about your plugin or your theme and, just record it so we have content about the WordCamp. So I think that's something we could look into. But I see someone standing, so maybe we could take a question.
I want to do all those things. Maybe not the 24-hour, but maybe. I don't know. We could do it. Please, question.
All right, so I'd like to hear from all of you. Like, I like the commitment part of it, like just to do it and stuff. But that obviously takes a lot of time. Like making the videos you guys produce, they're not quick, right? You're not just I'm done, put it out there. It takes time. So I'm curious, how much in your processes, how much time do you think about or do you dedicate towards all of the stuff that comes on the back end of creating a video, like the blog posts, the social posts that reinforce that, the emails that go out, the carousels and shorts and reels and all of those kinds of things that come from that content, how much effort do you put in there, and how much thought do you give that?
Yeah, let me repeat that question. So just for recording later, so how much thought do you all put into the content that surrounds the original video? So whether it's a reel or a YouTube video, or not YouTube, sorry, a reel or a blog post or a social media, blurb?
Not a ton of effort because I'm not good about posting to all those other mediums. I've struggled to have a consistent newsletter. I'm working on fixing that. I make separate shorts that I post to Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts. I'm not the biggest fan of repurposing long form, just editing up into clips. I mean, you can do it, but I kind of prefer to just purpose create content as a short. So I don't know, that might be 20% of my time, maybe less, but I'm also not very effective in those other areas outside of YouTube.
I wouldn't say it's a lot of my time. I mean, I spend a lot of time on like X and all these other platforms, but like if I'm posting a short, I'm posting it just kind of across all of them. If it's a long form video, I'll kind of typically publish it on YouTube, and then I'll throw it on X or whatever, in Facebook or wherever, just to like kind of like say, hey, go over and check it out. I'm not exactly sure the context deeper behind the question. I'd love to dive deeper, but I feel like I wouldn't let that stop you, you know what I mean, from publishing on YouTube. Because if you publish a video on YouTube, like if you focus on YouTube and you're publishing a video that is packaged well, then that is what YouTube's for. Like that's the reason that we post on YouTube, because the discoverability of it. It's not like you're throwing it somewhere random on the internet. Like that's the biggest power of YouTube. So if I was, consulting on like if you only had like an hour a day and it was, if you're going to post it everywhere or you're going to like try to get better at packaging on YouTube, I'd probably go that route. But again, it's easy wins to kind of potentially, send it over to your friends and everything like that via the feeds and get that as well. So, but I wouldn't say it's a huge time suck, no.
We're running out of time. I'll be really quick. My process, I'm being reductive. I use Twitter a lot, or X a lot, to get ideas and test ideas. So I'll put out a tweet, and if it gets traction, then it goes into a big spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet started off when I first started with one good idea, and I was really worried. Now, literally, I think it's got about 168 things videos I really want to make. The best ones bubble up to the top of that. Then I make the video. Then I'll pre-promo it on Twitter. Then I'll put it on YouTube. Then I'll download it from YouTube, transcribe it, put it into ChatGPT, turn it into a blog post, post it on my blog. Then I'll go into ChatGPT. I'm going really quick. Then I'll go into ChatGPT, create an X post out of it, and put the full video on Twitter, because you can't link out because the algorithm kills you. And then often in those videos as well, I'll put like a part of the video will be determined to build my email list. So there'll be a like click here for your one-click website or something. Download a cheat sheet I'll often get from the video, which I generate through ChatGPT, which then builds my email list. Then I send that out to my email list. Lots of stuff you can do with
That
it.
wasn't overwhelming at all.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, so I don't do that. But I feel differently about it. I put a ton of effort into it. I do think it can be time consuming. You just have to, but you have to work within what your resources allow. So if you don't have a ton of time and you can only do like one video and then you transcribe it and you make it a blog post or something, I think just do that. Like whatever you can get out there, just do it. I try not to do too many complex things, but I do think whatever resources you have, if you have a little bit of time, use ChatGPT or whatever resources to get content out there. And I think that's a good step. Eventually you'll build some momentum. But I do think you do have to put some effort into it, for sure, at the beginning.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to quote one of my friends, Angel Trinidad, who says, "It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to start." And that is my motto for a lot of things, including within WordPress and the community itself. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to our panelists. If you are a YouTuber, content creator, and you want to get involved in these conversations that we're having, I just want to plug that I'm trying to create a community with this within the WordPress space in an imperfect way. Would love to get to know you. Please reach out, nomad.blog. Everyone else's stuff is up here. But I would love to chat with you and would love to bring you into the space and see how we can tell the story of WordPress to more people and reach more people. I think open source is incredibly important right now in the state that we're in, and would love to get that message out. So thank you all so much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.